almost there, almost there. I think you guys are going to be very happy to see this very pretty girl. Hopefully she'll be able to also show us her pretty tiny cub. So yay, we've managed to make it to all the way to the Hyena Den, and everything seems to be very, very happy. What day is it today? Saturday morning. And there she is, just enjoying some peace and quiet. Now, I haven't been able to get to know many of the hyenas of Djuma, so if you guys have an ID for this particular female, and if she's one of the dominant ones, please do use the hashtag Safari Live and just let us know which one she is, and then maybe we can take a guess at, the possibility or the possible age of the cubs that are in there that we are hoping to see. Because anything that's still quite dark, like little hyena cubs are, I'll be super happy to see. I think maybe they were, because we came and checked a few times. Taylor came and checked in the morning, I came and checked twice in the afternoon. So I think yesterday, because of all the lions that were moving around and roaring and not too far from this area, I think they just decided that it was probably safer not to come out and just keep the little ones inside. Because lions will kill hyena cubs, or just fight hyenas in general, because they all compete for the same type of food for the same area. So they don't really have a very good relationship. That's why a lot of people call them the eternal enemies, or a very dramatic title along those lines. So I think maybe this one's just now decided to return, and she's been pretty much sleeping the whole morning just around here, and every now and again it's just, apparently she's raised her head, and that's about it. So I think maybe she's had quite a night of foraging around looking for food, and then she's finally returned to the safety of this very pretty den. So peaceful, isn't it? Thank you, girls, for sending your comments. Apparently we've got Ribbon that we're looking at. Nice to meet you, Ribbon. I've heard lots about you. I think the part that they didn't tell me was that you were able to sleep so peacefully. It's almost like, when you want to wake up Saturday morning, but it's way too hard, and you just turn around and you toss and turn and you open one eye, and it's like, maybe I'll get up, but then it's just like, oh no, there's nothing really keeping me awake. BB, you'd like to know if Ribbon still has both cubs. I'm not too sure. I hope she does. We're just gonna patiently sit here and wait, and hopefully as it starts getting warmer, maybe she'll call them out, and then we'll be able to answer that together. Not too sure yet. They've been a bit shy lately, apparently, or in the last few days, let's put it that way. So I'm hoping that at one point she's gonna just bring them all out, and we'll be able to see who's around and who's not around. But you see, the sun, I'm sure if we wait enough, the sun that's just starting on the eastern side of the termite mound is eventually going to start hitting her, or it's going to start warming her up, which could potentially cause her to move, and maybe the little ones will come around. So I think we can patiently sit around here to spend some time with some lovely hyenas. We were very lucky yesterday to spend a lot of time with many different lions, so I think any African predator is worth spending time with. Never ceases to amaze me how they manage to use these termite mounds, and they're just so completely hidden away. You would never know that they're here. And also, just if you see from this distance, we know where to look for the shape of her neck and her ears and everything else. But if you were to just drive past quickly, you would never see it. Imagine, for example, if you had to do a self-driving Kruger National Park where you just have to stick to the tar road and you go to, an average speed of maybe 40-50 kilometers an hour, depending on the type of road that you're in. Imagine how easy it would be to just drive past and never see them. Oh, we can hear a leopard. Maybe did that sound around Shibamu to you, Craig? Michael, the older the cubs, the less time the mother has to spend at the den. When they're very, very small, they have to come often to suckle them and give them milk. And as they start growing up, then they will have to return quite often just to bring them food. So when they're very, very small, you'll see the mother would spend maybe 60-70% of her time around here. And then as they start getting older, you know, that amount of time starts eventually becoming less and less and less. Sorry, I just want to update everyone about the... if anyone's interested also, I'm sitting at the Misikai and I just had audio for Ingwe. Sounds maybe around Shibamu area. Okay, Ralph, I'm gonna stick around with the Misikaya, but if you want to follow up around that area, you're welcome to. Copy. Sorry, just had to let everyone know because we could hear a leopard pretty much east from west. Yeah, and south and east direction of where we are. So hopefully there will be somewhere around, because I know there are a few vehicles working around there, so it's always good to let them know. Now that we are here and sitting, we can hear what's happening, which normally you can't if you're driving, because you can imagine, you know, you're moving and the steering wheel makes a noise and then the wind in your ears and everything else, so it doesn't really let you hear everything that's going on. But who knows, hopefully there will be something around. Obviously still quite at a distance that the hyena has heard it and doesn't feel bothered whatsoever by the leopard that's calling out in the distance. Had the leopard maybe been calling a bit closer to us, and likely she would have put her head up and maybe retreated back into the den or just gone around to investigate what was happening. I think it's safe to say that we are not too close to where that leopard sounded that it was calling from. Right, we've got another theory of who this one might be. Some people are saying maybe Scarback and not Ribbon. I think maybe the easiest way is just to, like I said, let's just be patient, and maybe if she wakes up and glances in this direction, we'll be able to have a bit of a better look at her, because at the moment she's, you know, she's giving us her back just to make it harder for all of us to try and figure out who she is. Maybe if you manage to see some of the spots on her shoulders, any pattern that might pop up. It's just crazy how the sun has been moving. We've been sitting here for maybe 5 minutes, and then it's just slowly but surely starting to move up to her. So I'm sure in the next 10-15 minutes she'll be completely exposed to the sun. You see, it's also the fact that they're denning in a termite mound pretty much shows that nothing goes to waste out in the bush. Oh, hello. Are you going to show us your face? I think she might start actually getting warm now. Yeah, so like I was saying, pretty much nothing goes to waste. These old termite mounds, they've been standing here for sometimes for over 200 years, 150 years or so on. And even with all of the termites have either moved off or died off, it's amazing the amount of animals that actually come and make use of the different termite mounds. We'll have, well, we saw yesterday, we have mongoose, different species of mongoose, dwarf mongoose, banded mongoose, slender mongoose, all of them moving around in here. And then we've also got sometimes the lizards that go in there and live with the mongoose. We've got the aardvarks that, if they find a big hole, they'll go in there. Porcupines and make use of termite mounds. Warthogs make use of termite mounds. Leopards can use termite mounds. So I think, we should give them a bit more credit for actually, as I say, being the engineering, but not only in the way that they tend to modify the bush and the vegetation around them, but also in the amount of housing they provide for so many creatures around. I mean, I'm sure if we had to draw a list, we could easily come up with at least 10, 15 species. This is a very placid Saturday morning for her. It is Saturday today, isn't it, Craig? Or is it Sunday? Alright, well, we hope it's Saturday. If not. Catherine, the hyena, is definitely okay. I think she's just very tired. Could have been that she spent the whole night moving around and just looking for food, and if she managed to get something, then she'll come back, because at this time of the year, they start moving quite a bit. And as a matter of fact, before we started Game Drive today, there were a few calling, so I wouldn't put it past her to have been the one that was making the noise, just coming back to the den run about, I would say maybe 6 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, after a night out looking for food. So I think she's just very tired. I mean, if you can imagine, they can walk a lot of kilometers during the night, and then, sometimes it can be stressful. They can bump into lions, they can bump into leopards, they can bump into other hyenas. So I think this one's just gotten back, and it's a nice, safe place for her to sleep. So she's just very relaxed and very sleepy. I think maybe her and Tristan are looking alike right now. I don't think Tristan's too awake either. Alright, I think the next 5 minutes or so, she'll have the sun in her face. We're going to sit around with our mystery hyena for the time being, but let's go over to Taylor and see if she's had any more luck and not freezing her face. Unfortunately, one cub was out, but it's gone back in, so it's we didn't actually manage to see it. The other guys before us said that he just came out and he looked very healthy and happy, and then all of a sudden he went back in about a few minutes before we arrived. So unfortunately, fortunately we know there is one cub in there, but I think he's still busy sleeping, or maybe the coming out was too exciting and he got very tired, and he's back inside, and we can see the mother is still pretty much in the same position that we left her in this morning, not moving around too much. But funny enough, now that Taylor was talking about the baobab trees, which are by far one of my favorite trees around here, there is an interesting African story, and is not obviously, let's put it this way, it's got a bit of an interesting idea of how certain local communities think about hyenas. It doesn't necessarily reflect the way we think about them, but certainly you can understand why there's been lots of human and hyena conflict in some areas. People don't regard hyenas as very nice animals to have around. So one of the story goes, and I think it's some of the people in Malawi that think about it, that when God had created all the animals, and then he was finishing with everything else in the world, all of the animals came around and they said they wanted to help. So God wasn't really happy about the fact that he wanted, to let them plant the trees and everything else, but the animals were very, very keen, so he said, fine, you guys can help me create the trees and then plant them. So apparently he gave different animals different species of trees and so on, and when he got to the hyena, he gave the hyena the seed of the baobab tree, but unfortunately the hyena got it wrong and then planted the tree upside down, and that's why the roots of the tree are up in the sky, whereas the rest of the leaves and everything else appear to be underneath the ground. So a lot of people use this story just to show how hyenas are not very clever animals, but we all know that's not really quite the case. It's just one of those old stories that go around in some of the cultural villages. But I always find it funny, because I would just imagine a hyena running around with a fully grown baobab tree and then just planting it the other way around. I think actually they would do it more as in a case just to confuse everyone and be like, oh really, you think I can't do this? Let me show you. So yes, we don't get too many baobab trees around here, but good to. It would be very nice to see them. Maybe one day we'll also see a hyena dragging a branch of one of them around here, just to prove everyone that the story is actually wrong and they know exactly what they're doing. I think in this case, though, they are not too bothered with life. They tend to prefer in abandoned termite mounds, because when you can imagine, if the termite mound is active and there are millions and millions and millions of little termites moving up and down, and then just moving little things, and they come at night and they can be very loud and they make noises when they chew on the grass or they bring it inside. So most animals tend to prefer inhabiting termite mounds that have been abandoned. There is quite a high number of them that are inactive, so that's normally the ones that they go for. Sometimes what you'll see, though, is a bit of a mix. You'll have part of the mound that is inactive, perhaps because the termite mound and the colony is just starting to die off, so they'll inhabit the parts that don't really have too many termites in it. I think I've seen maybe one spot where Hyena Den was, and when I used to work further south in the Sabi-san, just one spot where it seemed like half of the mound was active in the area where the hyenas were denning. It didn't seem to have anything else in it. But again, there are quite a few animals that prefer them active, but just because they want to go and eat what's inside. A lot of ants, they raid termite mounds. Aardvarks, which is a very funny looking creature, very, very pretty, almost like a pig. That they eat a lot of them. And then, well, obviously the pangolins, which are proving to be my Sabi-san's nemesis, as I haven't been able to see them here, which is a scaly ant eater, a little animal that rolls up into a bowl for safety, very similar to a giant artichoke almost. And they've got a very, very long tongue that they use to eat ants and termites, and the front claws very sharp that they use to dig up the termite mounds. So that also helps with the process. I mean, if you can imagine all of these animals coming and eating them and just digging up the termites in the termite mound, that also helps with the process of kind of wearing the colony down, so that then the particular mound will become inactive, and then other animals like the hyenas we're looking at can come and inhabit it. I think the more they use it, the more they stretch the chambers and the channels in there. Shansen, there are a few reasons that would cause a colony to abandon their mound, but a lot of the times what will happen is that they just to slow die off. So, for example, if there wasn't a lot of food around, obviously the termites wouldn't be able to produce the fungus or to produce the food that they grow on top of certain fungus that they pretty much cultivate at the bottom of the termite mound. Because this termite mound that we're looking at is normally made by fungus growing termites. So they'll come out during the night, they'll chew on some vegetation, and they'll go down, 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 down into the lower chambers where it's very humid and very hot, and then they will regurgitate the grass and the plant material that they've been eating. And on top of this regurgitation and on top of this food that they've pretty much thrown up, there's a little fungus that's going to start growing, and that's what they eat. The problem with the termite mounds is, in general, besides that they've got to make sure that they've got enough food around them. So if there's a very big fire, a drought, and they can't find food, then that's obviously works against them. Sometimes what happens as well is a termite mound only has a certain lifespan. So you'll have a queen, an original queen that would have started the mound, but after that particular queen, you can only have 2 more successions of other queens. So the queen will lay a lot of eggs, and then once the little larvae hatch, the workers will feed them a specific diet. So if they want to, for example, create soldiers, they will give them a certain diet with certain plant material and everything else. If they want to create more workers, they'll feed them another particular diet. And when they want to create the alates, the future kings and queens of other that are going to come out of the mound and then just go and spread their wings and go create other mounds, they feed them a different diet altogether. The problem is that when the queen dies off, then they can only almost like modify the diet of one particular queen or potential would-be queen for her to get all the organs and all the parts that she's going to need to start laying all the eggs to carry on sustaining all the life that goes around in the termite mound. And then after the second one dies, very rarely is this third one able to produce as many eggs or produce eggs that are going to be able to sustain the mound itself. So the mound is a very, very slow process that it starts dying off. Sometimes it'll happen as well. Like I think they published recent studies. I think I can't remember if it was in Kenya or Namibia, because it was very beautiful termite mounds of a very reddish soil color. That they've done some carbon testing on them, and I think they've been going on for around 2,000 years. But what they believed happened with those particular mounds was that as soon as it sort of started dying off, then another queen or another colony of termites went and lived in that particular one, and then it carried on expanding. And these things are, I think, maybe 2 meters tall, very, very big and precious termite mounds. I think that's what they reckon it happened. I might be slightly confused and we'll have to double check my facts, but I do remember that they believe that they are about 2,000, 1,500 years old. That is, you know, termites have seen pretty much all of the world go by, all of our modern civilization, and they can tell the story. I'm like, oh, this is how it was back then. This is what you guys are doing right now. They'll be here long, long after we leave this hyena, and well, long after I'm gone too. We're gonna leave this pretty hyena to sleep. I think she's pretty much done for the day. We'll stick around for a few more minutes, see if perhaps the cubs come out. But if they don't in the meantime, then let's just go over to Taylor and